We, the jury, find the defendant. Count number 1, not guilty. Count number 2, not guilty. Count number 21, not guilty. Count number 22, not guilty.
Our next guest has been living an unimaginable nightmare, being accused of molesting her own daughter and her friends, and even having them testify against her in court. For mom and kindergarten teacher Tanya Kraft, this hellish reality came to an end and she was found innocent of all charges last month. Please welcome Tanya Kraft and her attorney, Dr. Lorandos. You know, it is unimaginable to think of what you've been through. It's been 7 weeks since you were acquitted on all 22 charges of child abuse. Over the past 2 years, you lost your job, you faced a lifetime, hundreds of years in prison, and most importantly, you lost custody of your 2 kids. I don't understand how you even begin to get your life back together. Can you just give us a glimpse of what it's been like since the acquittal?
Basically, since the acquittal, I've decided to not, live under a rock and decided to make some changes. I know when people go through situations like this, you sort of want to just forget about it, and I'm not going to do that. So I'm going to go back to law school, and I want to make some changes nationally as far as people that interview the children and qualifications, because you can have a 2-day training course and be an interviewer, a forensic interviewer. And obviously my first priority is my children and regaining custody that should have never been taken away.
So for those who don't know your story, what happened was your daughter and 2 other friends accused you of molesting them several times between 2005 and 2007. And they were all between the ages of 5 and 7. And even, like they said, your daughter had testified against you, but how did these charges even come up?
First of all, just a little caveat. Actually, my daughter had only said that I applied medicine to her, so how there were charges against her, I'm still in a fog about.
What kind of story? Why would they make up a story like that?
Basically, from what we had gathered from all the information, we had there were 2 friendships that had gone awry, and there was an ex-husband that was not a good relationship, and the children, they were being questioned and asked by their parents about some child-on-child, just normal touching, pointing things. My name was brought into it by the parents, not by the children. The children did not spontaneously say my name. The parents questioned over and over and over, and then interjected my name into the situation, and it was just adopted by the children.
What was the motivation of them to put your name in the middle of that?
That's a really good question. As far as getting into their minds, I don't know, but I do know that it was
Against you?
We definitely had a falling out. I had a falling out with the parents, and there had been no communication with the parents. And my husband and I actually had gotten married at the home of one of the children.
Were they your students, the 2 girls?
One girl was a former student, and one I had taught her brother.
Oh.
So,
Now, why again would your daughter testify against you?
well, I don't really know. She's at the age, I assume she does what she's told to do, and she actually didn't testify against me. I mean, she got on the stand and basically, talked about medication. So it was very, it was very hard for me to understand why she was put through what she was put through.
So after you were accused, you insisted on 2 polygraph tests. You passed both tests. You did your own research. You found out about, I make sure I want to say your name right, Dr. Lorandos. You found out about a study, thank you, about a study that he had done about the power of suggestion on kids. So you took it upon yourself to drive all the way to Michigan to see him. You had no appointment.
He wouldn't return my phone calls.
You wouldn't even return your phone calls, and you went up there yourself to see him. Why did you decide to take her case?
I've been a psychologist for decades. I quit and became a lawyer because doing this to little girls has to stop. Creating false memories in little girls and little boys' minds has to stop. And Tanya, being the kind of person that she was, passing these lie detectors. I never take a case unless I pass at least a couple of lie detectors. But Tanya, she's articulate, she's smart, she's a perfect kindergarten teacher. If they can accuse Tanya, they can accuse anybody. Any of you.
Just to jump in here, what was the actual accusation? What were you accused of, Tanya?
They're actually of touching vaginal areas and penetrating vaginal areas and anal areas, and then having children that touch me.
And what was the medicine for?
And what actually happened with
With that, they actually, it was in her initial interview, and they pretty much just ignored that and kept trying to get my daughter to say that I touched her and make the touching and the medication application separate. And my daughter was very insistent. No, it was the same time. So she had diarrhea, and so had a rash in her vaginal area and her bottom.
And you did what mothers do.
Absolutely. And I used to undermom because I've always heard that was the great
I
secret.
have to ask you this. I mean, have we learned nothing since the McMartin trial? The McMartin trial was something that happened in California years and years ago where nursery school teachers, it was a family, the McMartin family, was accused of molesting and doing all this satanic stuff with these kids, and it shut down the school, it ruined them, and only to discover, several years later that it was all a lie. So how come we haven't learned anything?
Don't you want to just slap them upside the head when this stuff happens? We've learned a lot, but I've learned, scientists like me have learned a lot, but try to convince the lawyers. If you're not an NACDL lawyer, a National Association of Criminal Defense Lawyers, a well-trained lawyer, you don't get it. So it doesn't get explained to juries, but we know a lot as scientists.
But the other side of the coin is that it does happen.
Absolutely.
Children need to be believed
And
very
we're the
often.
first people
Not maybe in this
who wanna
case or
stop
the
that.
McMartin case,
Absolutely.
but their children do say the truth very often.
Yeah, so we want to ask you some questions about that, Doctor, when we return. We are coming back with Tanya and the doctor in just a few minutes. Stay with us. We are back with Tanya Kraft and her attorney, Dr. Lorandos. Doctor, I want to ask you, as a parent, if your kid comes to you and says they've been touched, they've been molested, of course you're going to believe them. So what, in your expertise, how are parents supposed to handle this and decipher truth from something that was maybe suggested to them?
Well, as a doctor, rather than as a trial lawyer, I would say that when your child comes to you and tells you that they've been hurt for any reason, you want to get to the bottom of it. But if it has to do with sexual hurt, we as Americans get a little bit crazy about that. So you want the child to talk to somebody that really understands how to talk to children, not somebody who's had a 2-day course.
Right, I didn't realize that that's all the training that was necessary, and that's what you're working on, Tanya. You've got some missions in front of you, one of which is getting custody of your 2 kids back, and I know that that's your primary one. You lost custody of them. They're now 8 and 11 when you were charged. I know that you're in the process of regaining full custody. They're living full-time with their father, your ex-husband, correct?
Yes.
And you've had, since the acquittal, you've had visitation? Is that correct?
I have had time with both of my children.
And what is that relationship like, and what's the status? Like, what are the steps necessary for you to get your kids back?
Legally, we do have a hearing that we're going to have. But as far as emotionally, whenever I am with my children, it has gone very well. It has gone very well.
Can I ask you, why couldn't you get our kids back? She's been acquitted. You're an innocent person. You're the mother of the children. Why are you having trouble getting your kids back?
This is one of my points about why we need to get this right in the first place. Absolutely, children need to be talked to, and you need to get to the bottom of their accusations. But legally, that is just how it happens. And I can't explain it. I don't agree with it. But that's why it needs to be gotten right in the first place, because the psychological damage to the children in false accusations are just as bad as children that are molested.
Does your daughter understand what's happened? And does she feel like somehow she was part of what happened? Have you been able to say, you tried to tell them that I was putting medication on you, but nobody was listening, so I'm not mad at you? Does she understand what's going on?
Well, at this point, with both my children, we haven't. We have some legal guidelines that we have to go by, so we haven't discussed it. But what I will say is, as a teacher and an educator, 8 and 11-year-olds do not understand consequences. They don't understand. If an example I use is if a child's playing ball and the ball goes in the road, they don't understand. I could get hit if I go. So my job as a parent is to take care of their needs more than their wants. They want to run to the road, grab the ball, but I don't allow them to. So I think at this point it would be difficult for them to even understand the consequences of what could have happened and what did happen. And I don't want any of the children, including my own, but the other, any of the children to take on that guilt.
Like you
That
said, you're not angry at the two girls or your daughter for saying the things they did, but you do want to make sure that this doesn't happen with other kids. How are you planning on doing that?
well, just as you said, they are victims, but they're victims of the Lookout Mountain judicial system and, unfortunately, parents. But
Let's talk about your husband, David, for a minute. David, you guys are married, but you were separated for a brief time before you got arrested for reasons which had nothing to do with why you're. This is your present husband
that we talked
David's
about,
your present husband, for reasons having nothing to do with the arrest. And you guys have been happily together ever since. David, I can't see you. But was there any time that you ever doubted Tanya? Were there any seeds of doubt?
No, we reconciled during the course of all this, well, a year and a half before trial, and I'm very proud of her, support her 100%, love her dearly. It's,
actually, I have heard from multiple jurors, and I've talked to them individually. They're very supportive of what you had asked. I want to start a nonprofit organization and to protect the children. I want to make some national standards for people that forensically evaluate. So I want it to trickle down to state and to local, but to start with the national level. So they actually are the ones I have spoken to are on board with helping me do that. And
you also filed a $25 million lawsuit against pretty much everybody. Your ex-husband, the sheriff, the others who repeatedly and suggestively prompted these kids. One of the questions is, why did you do that? Do you feel like, instead of just saying, I just want to move on and put this behind me?
well, it's really impossible to move on and put it behind you. You have to take what is bad and you have to change it and make good out of it. And unfortunately, my parents, we have talked about I've lost my home. My parents have lost their entire inheritance. And it's more about accountability. I mean, I can truly say that there is no malice, there is no bitterness in my heart, but they do need to be held accountable.
Yes.
And yes, right. And that's what I taught my kindergartners, where it doesn't mean that there is an anger in a relationship, but there are consequences for our actions, and it's about accountability.
We want to thank you for coming here. We are with you, and we hope that the road together like that is a smooth one for you. You've been through enough. Thank you, Dr. Lorandos. We're glad that they were here today. We'll be right